So the fascinating political thing is both in Washington and in California, the legalization advocates are now moving against their medical allies.
Yeah.
We'll see how it works out. But yes, I mean, in Washington, where the commercial market, they keep saying recreational, I keep telling them to say commercial.
Yeah.
I don't want to judge why people are using it, right? But the commercial market will be tightly tested with accredited testing labs and mystery shoppers around to buy packages and compare what's in the package to what's on the label.
Yeah.
And certified free of mold, spores, yeast, fungi, pesticides, heavy metals, fertilizer, whatever. The medical stuff is none of that.
Right.
So if you're just getting medical marijuana for recreational purposes, it probably doesn't matter. But if you're actually sick,
Yeah.
you ought to be in the commercial market.
Yeah.
And there ought to be a tax exemption.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way it's going to work out.
Do you think other states will have ballot initiatives?
Oh, Alaska in 2014, California, probably some others in 2016. And they'll pass.
Yeah.
Unless something really screws up in Washington.
Yeah.
No, look, that's the direction public opinion is going. I don't claim it's a good direction, but that's the direction it's going.
And, I mean, do you think it would be better for like, obviously there are some states that are examining bills at the moment. Do you think it would be better to go that way through bills through the legislature rather than ballot initiatives?
Well, of course it should go through the process. And it's an interesting question why legislators in states where the voters heavily vote to legalize cannabis don't do it legislatively.
Yeah.
I have a theory about that for which I have no evidence. I think voters are still using votes on drug policy bills as measures of the personal moral standing of legislators. And I think there are voters who would themselves vote for legalization who would vote against somebody who voted for legalization.
Yeah.
That's a just so story. That's not data. But it may change. I mean, now that it's happened, it may seem less weird.
Yes.
And yes, of course, you'd rather have it done legislatively. But what you'd really like is a set of state laws that don't conflict with federal law. I mean, it's actually a little complicated. I've said this. Every state legislator takes an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution makes federal law the supreme law of the land.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've read some of the stuff by the Brookings Institute people about this tension between state and federal.
Right. Well, the state's clearly allowed to repeal. Right? That's easy.
Yes.
I guess it can regulate after it's repealed, but still, it's complicated. So that's what's going on.
Yeah.
And the question that's being asked in Washington State is, what if we gave a pot legalization and nobody came? Right? It's not clear that the commercial market can compete with the medical market or the strictly illicit market. And the advocates promised, as one of the advantages of legalization, greatly decreased enforcement expenditures.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Not if you want revenue.
Yeah. Well, regulation requires enforcement, doesn't it?
Right. And so does taxation.
Yeah. And what do you, because my understanding is that the Colorado initiative was very different to the Washington one. And, there's a lot of grow your own there.
So the grow your own thing is there, and that's something the legislature can't change. And that's potentially a big threat. It's also the potential basis of a bargain between the federal government and the state.
Yep.
As I thought that was very different until I realized that Washington also has grow your own. You just have to pay $40 for a medical recommendation.
Right. Yeah.
And it's more generous.
Yeah.
And you're allowed to have these organized entities that do it.
Yeah.
Which are also, as in Colorado, unregistered, unlicensed, untaxed. There is
Yeah.
no count of the number of gardens or access points. Because you do not have to register as a garden or an access point. You just set it up.
Right.
And there's no regulatory authority that's over you.
Yeah.
So what's going to likely to happen in Washington is that they're going to simply move all of that under the jurisdiction of the Liquor Board.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I read your interview with Time magazine, and you were talking about the medical marijuana market and how they might actually lobby against these kind of ballot initiatives. And I guess that's because, as you say, it's so flexible in some states, particularly California already, that so you're saying
the three counties that grow the pot all voted against Prop 19.
Right. Yep. Yep.
It was said during Prohibition that the political coalition that maintained it was Baptists and bootleggers.
Could you give me like a brief summary of what you think the benefits as well as the costs are of the Washington state?
Well, I mean, there's about $1 billion. Well, there's about $1 billion cannabis market in Washington.
Right.
I suppose you can't really call it a criminal market
Yep.
if you accept all the silly legal fictions they've set up. To me, the big advantages are the testing and labeling, and maybe some tax revenue. But again, most of the advantages of legalization were already there.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the other advantage is that you don't have to be a liar. You don't have to go to some doctor and pay him and say you're anxious or something. You can just do it.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think there are many disadvantages because it's not clear to me that access is going to be greater after than it was before.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about Washington is it breaks into two states. So that Seattle and its suburbs, where most of the population is New York. It's very much part of the bicoastal world.
Right.
Very prosperous. Boeing and Google and Amazon and so on. You get a little bit inland, and it's Nebraska. And it's not the prosperous part. I think we're in Nebraska. It's pretty bombed out. There are two federal judicial districts in Washington. So the Western District is Seattle and the suburbs.
Yep.
And the U.S. Attorney there has just let the medical stuff go.
Mm-hmm.
The Eastern District, which is headquartered in Spokane, they've cracked down. So there are not open sales points in most of the state.
Yeah.
By area, though not by population.
Yeah.
So there will be a much bigger change.
Yeah. But then also there's been research that shows that even amongst people that don't support tax and regulate, they support the state's rights to at least experiment with
It's fascinating that a majority of the voters want the Supreme Court to decide gay marriage on a uniform basis nationally.
Yeah.
And a majority of the voters want every state to be able to do whatever it wants with marijuana.
Yeah. Well, I know a couple of people I've spoken to have also said that the federal government is also thinking not just about marijuana policy, but about states' independence with other issues such as guns. And that's one of the things that... Yeah. So they're obviously having to think about all these different issues and not just the kind of state-federal issue on cannabis policy. But people I've been speaking to seem to think that this is the beginning of a tipping point and that, things are going to change. And
I think it's likely true unless we really screw it up, which we could.
Yeah. In the not too distant future, there's going to be...
Yeah, certainly the The momentum of public opinion is pretty strong, and I don't see anything coming that's going to change that.
Yeah.
But I didn't see anything coming that was going to change that in 1979 either.
No, well, some of the people were saying that, young people are more liberal, but then obviously when they get older, when they have children...
No, but it looks like the Gen Xers are staying liberal in cannabis even with children. That's what's interesting.
Yeah.
The boomers
Yeah.
went anti-cannabis and are now back because their kids are grown.
Yeah.
But the next generation down has just always been part of their lives.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, talking about the international situation and the UN conventions and the International Narcotics Control Board, and they've already criticised what's going on.
It's a good political talking point. If we withdraw from the treaty and re-accede with a reservation on cannabis, what, are they going to throw us out?
That's not likely to happen in the near term, is it?
No. Again, that's Hillary's second term.
Yeah. Yeah.